The old abandoned hospital was an imposing sight with its peeling paint and shattered windows, but no one ever expected what would be found beneath it. The mystery only began to unfold when someone decided to dig beneath the decaying building. What they discovered there shocked them all. What was that thing doing under the hospital? Stick around till the end of this video and we'll show you. A group of friends decided to explore the creepy old Mercy Hospital, which had been closed for several years. It was rumored that the hospital had been shut down because of some terrible things that happened there. No one really knew what those things were, but it didn't stop people from trying to find out. The locals said that if you walked across the street in front of the hospital at midnight, whatever your greatest fear was, it would come to life and attack you. Naturally, a bunch of teenagers tested this theory, but none of them ever returned. Years went by and the hospital continued to stand empty, becoming more dilapidated with each passing day. It was an eyesore in the community, and the local government finally decided to demolish it and build something new in its place. But before they could do that, they needed to make sure that the building was safe to enter. A team of inspectors went inside to check it out, but they soon realized that it wasn't safe. They called the police and told them to come and investigate. And that's when the real mystery began. As the police were combing through the hospital, looking for any signs of life, they heard a knock coming from inside the wall. They all froze and listened intently, hoping that they hadn't imagined it. But then they heard it again. Someone or something was definitely in there. With their guns drawn, they slowly made their way towards the sound, cautiously peeking around corners and behind boxes, but they couldn't see anything. Then they noticed a small hole in the wall, and that's when they saw him. It was a man, or at least what was left of him. He was wearing a lab coat, and his skin was a greenish-gray color. Was he an alien? Was he a human who had been experimented on? No one knew for sure. But what they did know was that he wasn't alive. He had been dead for a long time. In fact, he looked like he had been dead for hundreds of years. His clothes were tattered and his body was covered in dirt and grime. But despite his horrific appearance, there was something about him that seemed familiar. Like the police had seen him somewhere before, but they couldn't quite place it. They brought him back to the station house to try and identify him, but after searching through all of their missing persons reports, they couldn't find anyone who matched his description. Days turned into weeks, and still no one knew who the man was or how he had ended up in the wall. The police were stumped, and so were the doctors. They performed an autopsy, but it didn't turn up anything useful. The only thing they could agree on was that he had been dead for a long time, and that he had died a horrible death. But beyond that, they had no answer. The case went cold, and the old hospital continued to stand abandoned and mysterious. People in the town started to forget about the strange man in the wall, until one day a young woman named Emily stumbled upon it while she was walking her dog. She stopped to take a closer look, and that's when she saw it. There was a small hole in the wall where someone had been hiding. Curious, she reached out to touch it, but as soon as she did, she felt a sharp pain in her hand. She pulled back quickly, surprised and scared. But when she looked at her hand, she saw that it was bleeding, and that's when she knew that she had made a terrible mistake. She should have never touched that wall. As the days passed, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She started having nightmares about the old hospital and the strange man in the wall. She tried to tell her friends about it, but they just laughed and said that she was making it up. So she kept it a secret. But she knew that something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. Then one day, while she was researching the history of the hospital, she came across an old news article that told the story of the strange man in the wall. She learned that his name was Dr. Edward Richmond, and that he had been the hospital's first director. But he had resigned suddenly without giving a reason, and no one had seen him since. Emily couldn't believe it. All this time, she had been wondering who the man in the wall was, and she had found out that he was one of the hospital's founders. But why was he hiding in the wall? And why did he have such a strange greenish-grayish complexion? Emily was determined to find out the truth. She went back to the hospital and started digging around. She found a secret passageway hidden behind a bookshelf, and it led her to a basement that no one knew existed. In the basement, she found documents that told the story of Dr. Richmond and the hospital. She learned that the hospital wasn't just an ordinary place. It was a front for a secret organization that was conducting experiments on humans. And Dr. Richmond was one of the leaders. He had been in charge of developing a serum that would extend human lifespan, but it had failed and he had become desperate. He injected himself with a version of the serum, and it changed his skin color and made him very sick. He hid in the hospital's basement until he died. That was why he had been in the wall when the police had found him. But he wasn't alone. Emily also found evidence that there were other people in the basement with him. People who were being held captive and experimented on. She knew that she had stumbled onto something big, something that could change the world. But she also knew that she was in danger. If the people who were running the organization found out that she knew too much, they would get rid of her. So she did the only thing that she could think of. She called the police and told them what she had found. When the police arrived, they were stunned. They had no idea that there was a secret organization operating in their midst. They arrested everyone involved and shut down the organization. Emily was hailed as a hero, but she knew that she had only scratched the surface. There was so much more to the story, and she was determined to find out what it was. As she continued to dig, she found out that the organization had been funded by some of the richest people in the world. People who had used their power and influence to further the organization's goals. She also found out that the experiments weren't just about extending human lifespan. They were about creating the perfect human, a human without fear or emotion. But as Emily dug deeper, she found herself in more danger than ever before. The people who ran the organization weren't going down without a fight. They sent their agents after her, trying to silence her. But Emily was prepared. She had made copies of all of the evidence, and she was ready to expose them. In the end, the truth came out, and the mastermind behind it all was revealed. It was someone that no one had suspected. Someone who had been pulling the strings from the shadows. Emily had finally uncovered the conspiracy, but the battle was far from over. There were still people out there who wanted to keep the truth hidden, and she would have to face them. Are you ready to discover what secrets lie beneath another abandoned structure? Click on the video on the screen now to continue the mystery.